All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're jumping in the time machine and going back to 1986 to a single paper in the journal Nature. Now, it might not look like much, but what's inside contains the secret to how we taught machines to learn from their own mistakes, which basically blew the doors wide open for modern AI.
I mean, it sounds like a pretty simple question today, doesn't it? But back then, this was a massive roadblock for artificial intelligence. Just imagine trying to teach a student, but the only feedback you can give them is that their final test score was wrong. You can't tell them which answers were wrong or why. That was the huge challenge for AI.
Okay, so to really get why this paper was such a game changer, we first have to talk about the brick wall that researchers had slammed into. It was known as the hidden layer problem. So if you look here, on the left, you've got these early neural networks. Super simple, right? An input layer, an output layer, kind of like a light switch. You flip it, the light comes on. Great for basic stuff. But if you want to solve something really complex, like say recognizing a face, you need what's on the right. You need these intermediate or hidden layers to really chew on the data. And therein lies the problem. How in the world do you train these middle layers that are basically a black box?
I mean, just think about it for a second. You could tell the network, hey, your final answer was wrong, but you had absolutely no way to tell the little units inside how they messed up. The analogy is perfect. It's like telling your whole company, we missed our target, but not being able to tell anyone what they specifically need to do better. So yeah, AI was pretty much stuck in the kiddie pool, unable to learn the really cool abstract stuff needed to understand the world.
And then this paper came along. It introduced a learning procedure with a solution that was so elegant, so simple, really. It's a process called backpropagation, or, as I like to think of it, learning backwards.
So what is backpropagation exactly? Well, the core idea is to learn by working backward from your mistakes. Instead of just looking at the final answer and saying, oops, that's wrong, the whole point is to trace that mistake all the way back through the network, step by step. Then you adjust every little connection along the way to close that gap between the guess and the right answer.
The telephone game analogy is just perfect. You know how the message gets all garbled by the end? Well, instead of just shouting wrong at the last person, backpropagation is like someone walking backwards down the line. They go to the last person and say, okay, you were a little off here. Then they go to the person before them and say, and hey, the reason they messed up is because you were off by this much. It's this super precise correction all the way back to the start, so every single connection learns its exact share of the blame.
Okay, so how does this actually work in practice? Well, it's this really methodical two-pass process. And the network does this over and over and over again, thousands, sometimes millions of times.
First up, you've got the forward pass. You just feed the network some data, it ripples through all the layers, and it spits out its best guess. Step 2, calculate the error. You just compare its guess to the real answer and see how wrong it was. Then comes the magic part, the backward pass. That error, that wrongness score, gets sent backward through the whole network, assigning a little bit of blame to every single connection. And finally, step 4, adjust the weights. Think of weights as just the strength of each connection. Each one gets tweaked just a tiny bit to do better next time. You repeat this cycle and slowly but surely, the network actually learns.
Okay, that's the theory. But the big question is, does it actually work? Well, let's look at a problem that was basically impossible for the older networks, detecting symmetry.
Now, for you and me, this seems trivial, right? But for a computer, this is a surprisingly tough nut to crack. And here's why. Looking at just one piece of the input, it tells you absolutely nothing. The network has to learn to see the whole picture, the overall structure, all at once.
And this is where you really see the magic of backpropagation. Nobody told the network how to solve this. The algorithm just figured out this incredibly clever solution on its own. It learned to use its two hidden units like a secret code. Whenever it saw a symmetrical pattern, it would turn both hidden units off. And that off-off signal was the cue for the final output to turn on and shout, symmetry! It literally invented its own internal logic to solve the problem.
So solving symmetry is pretty cool, but the next test they threw at it, this one was even more impressive. They wanted to see if a network could learn something as complex, as abstract, as, well, human, as a family tree.
So what they did was they built two family trees, one English, one Italian. They fed the network over 100 simple facts, things like Christopher's father is Andrew. The real test was to see if the network could then complete a new phrase, like if you gave it Colin has an aunt, could it figure out the answer? And this, right here, this is the absolute core of the paper, in the author's own words. Because the real breakthrough wasn't just that the network got the right answers, it was how it did it. Those hidden units, that black box in the middle, they started to figure things out, to represent really important features of the problem all by themselves.
So when the researchers actually looked inside the network's brain, what they found was just mind-blowing. The hidden units hadn't just memorized a list of names and relationships. Nope. They had developed their own abstract concepts. One part of the network basically learned to tell the difference between the English and Italian families. Another part figured out the concept of a generation. It even sorted out the different branches of the family tree. These are complex ideas, and the network came up with them all on its own.
And here's the kicker. Because it learned these deep, underlying structures, not just memorizing facts, it could generalize. It could actually answer questions about family members correctly, even if it had never seen that specific fact during training. That right there is the difference between rote memorization and real learning. And proving a machine could do that, it was a monumental breakthrough.
Okay, so this paper is from 1986. That's a lifetime ago in tech years. So why are we still talking about it? What's the big deal today?
It's because backpropagation wasn't just some clever new algorithm, it was the key. It was the key that unlocked the entire kingdom of deep learning. It finally gave us a reliable way to train these really complex, multi-layered networks. And I mean everything we think of as modern AI. The translation app on your phone, the tech that spots tumors in medical scans, the brains behind self-driving cars, all of it is built on the foundation that this one process made possible.
It all started right here. This single paper from 1986 laid the mathematical groundwork for the AI revolution that we are all living through right this very second.
You see, in the end, this paper did more than just teach a machine how to solve a couple of clever problems. It gave machines a way to learn for themselves, a way to find patterns we might not see, and to build their own internal understanding of the world. And that leaves us with the biggest question of all, one that's more urgent today than ever before. We figured out how to teach the machines to learn. The real question now is, what do we teach them next?